Jennifer Elaine Townsend stood before the floor-length mirror, fingers trembling as they smoothed her champagne silk gown, a dress that cost more than her childhood home. 3 months pregnant, she cupped her barely visible bump, this secret life the one pure thing in her gilded cage of a marriage. The trailer park girl who'd once scrubbed toilets to pay for community college now wore diamonds that could buy her old neighborhood. But wealth had its price. Her reflection showed the carefully concealed bruise at her collarbone, Marcos's reminder from last week. Tonight was the Peterson Foundation Gala. Tonight, Marcos Davidson, Atlanta's ruthless billionaire king, would parade his trophy wife before his colleagues and his mistress, unaware that his quiet, observant wife had been documenting everything, every offshore account, every violent outburst, every lie. Tonight, everything would change. "We're already late." Marcos's voice sliced through the bedroom, cool and razor-edged. The man who'd built Davidson Enterprises from millions to billions before 40 didn't tolerate inefficiency, not from employees, not from his wife. Jennifer nodded, sliding diamond earrings worth 6 figures through her lobes. These jewels that once dazzled the girl from South Atlanta's poorest streets now felt like elegant shackles. "The Robertson deal closes tonight," he continued, checking his Patek Philippe watch, the one she'd given him for their anniversary, purchased with the allowance he monitored. "Davis needs reassurance." Lauren prepared the projections. Lauren, his financial analyst. "Third mistress this year." "Of course," Jennifer murmured, a practiced smile settling on her face. The same smile she'd perfected serving drinks at the country club where Marcos had first noticed her, the beautiful, soft-spoken waitress with the steel trap mind. The smile that had paid her mother's medical bills when Jennifer caught the eye of Atlanta's most eligible bachelor. The Mercedes glided through Atlanta's streets, the silence between them dense as summer humidity. From her window, Jennifer watched the city transform from the gleaming towers of wealth to the broken streets where she'd grown up, then back to opulence as they approached the Marquis Hotel. "I need you on point tonight," Marcos said as the valet opened her door. "No more of those vacant stares. People notice. People notice." If only he knew how much she noticed. How much she documented. The ballroom sparkled with Atlanta's elite old money, new money, blood money. Jennifer moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting air kisses and compliments on a dress chosen by Marcos's personal shopper. "You look wonderful, Jennifer," said Richard Peterson, their host, his eyes roaming appreciatively. "Marcos is a lucky man." "Thank you," she replied, as Marcos's possessive hand settled on her lower back, fingertips digging in slightly. A warning. An hour passed. Then 2. Jennifer watched Marcos work the room, then disappear with Lauren through the terrace doors. The same Lauren who'd visited their home last weekend, who'd smiled sweetly while assessing the mansion's value. 20 minutes. 30. Jennifer set down her sparkling water and moved toward the terrace. Something inside her, the part that had survived childhood poverty, that had clawed her way into college on scholarships and determination, propelled her forward. The garden air was heavy with jasmine and secrets. She heard them before she saw them: Marcos's low laugh, Lauren's responding giggle. They stood partially hidden by a sculpted hedge, his hand possessively curved around Lauren's waist, her burgundy dress striking against his black tuxedo. "Marcos." He turned, irritation flashing across his face. Not surprise. Not guilt. Just annoyance at the interruption. "Jennifer," he responded, voice slick as oil. "You should be inside." "I think we need to talk," she said, voice steadier than her thundering heart. Lauren stepped back, but not far. Her hand remained on Marcos's arm with practiced familiarity. "Go inside, Jennifer. You're embarrassing yourself." His voice held that dangerous calm that always preceded storms. "How long?" The question escaped before she could stop it. A small crowd had gathered at the terrace doors. In her peripheral vision, Jennifer registered the soft glow of phone screens. "Recording. You want the truth?" Marcos moved toward her, towering over her smaller frame. "Fine. Lauren understands what a man in my position needs. She doesn't question every decision, doesn't suffocate me with neediness, and she's not the first. Does that satisfy your curiosity?" Each word struck like physical blows. Jennifer's hand instinctively went to her stomach. "I'm carrying your baby," she whispered. The slap came without warning. The crack of his palm against her cheek echoed across the terrace, followed by gasps and the frantic clicking of phones capturing Atlanta's golden couple shattering. Jennifer stumbled backward, hand flying to her burning cheek, eyes blurring with tears. "You brought this on yourself," Marcos snarled, mask completely gone now. "Always pushing, always prying. Remember what you were when I found you. You're nothing without me. Nothing." In that moment, standing under the Atlanta sky with her humiliation captured for viral consumption, something crystallized in Jennifer Townsend. The frightened girl who'd grown up counting pennies for dinner vanished, replaced by steel determination. Without a word, she turned and walked away, steps measured and deliberate. In her purse, her phone vibrated with the first news alerts notifications from an app she'd set up months ago to track mentions of Davidson Enterprises. By morning, Atlanta would be talking about nothing else. The guest bedroom in Maddie's Midtown apartment felt like sanctuary after the storm. Jennifer sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing yesterday's borrowed pajamas, the only things she'd grabbed before fleeing at dawn. Her phone lay beside her, screen periodically lighting up with notifications she couldn't bear to read. The video had exploded overnight. #Buckhead betrayal was trending locally. Jennifer's fingertips ghosted over her cheek, the phantom sting a reminder that this wasn't just another nightmare. This was freedom's painful birth. "Your parents' flight lands in an hour," Maddie said from the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs. Her friend since freshman year at Georgia State, Maddie had opened her door at 5 a.m. without questions when Jennifer showed up, mascara-stained tears tracking her face. What Marcos Davidson never understood about his wife was that quiet didn't mean weak. Observant didn't mean passive. Long before Jennifer became Mrs. Davidson, before she caught his eye serving drinks at the charity gala where Atlanta's wealthy patted themselves on the back for donations that amounted to pocket change, she'd been the girl who kept her family afloat when her father left. The teenager who worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. The young woman who knew survival required attention to detail. The first time she'd noticed a suspicious bank transfer, she photographed it. When Marcos came home with lipstick on his collar, she documented it. When board meetings resulted in unexplained cash flows, she recorded dates, amounts, patterns. She'd grown up watching her mother work herself to exhaustion cleaning other people's homes, only to lose everything when cancer struck and insurance failed. Jennifer had learned early, the system was rigged against those without power or money. Evidence was protection. Now, sitting in borrowed pajamas, Jennifer reached for her phone and opened an encrypted app disguised as a pregnancy tracker. Inside was a meticulously organized digital vault, thousands of photographs, recordings, and notes documenting 5 years of financial irregularities at Davidson Enterprises. Offshore accounts. Tax evasion. Money laundering through the family's charitable foundation. Marcos had married her for her beauty and her background, a rags-to-riches American dream he could showcase at parties. He'd never bothered to learn that the same survival instincts that had protected her in poverty had continued within the mansion's walls. "I need to call Catherine Walsh," Jennifer said quietly, accepting the tea from Maddie. "The attorney? Do you think it's time?" Jennifer nodded, thumb hovering over the contact. Catherine Walsh was Atlanta's premier divorce attorney, known for representing women leaving powerful men. She was also rumored to have close ties to federal prosecutors specializing in white-collar crime. "I never wanted to use any of this," Jennifer said, gesturing to her phone. "I just needed insurance." Maddie sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "He hit you, Jen. In public. While you're carrying his child. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival." The morning news droned from Maddie's kitchen television. Sources say Marcos Davidson, CEO of Davidson Enterprises, has not returned to the Buckhead residence since last night's incident. Company stock has already dropped 3 points in pre-market trading. Jennifer's phone lit up with another call. Marcos's mother, Margaret. The Davidson family had already begun damage control. She could picture Margaret working the phones, trying to spin the story, protect the family name, the company valuation, the foundation's reputation. Just as she had when Jennifer had shown up at a Davidson family dinner wearing the wrong designer, speaking with traces of her South Atlanta accent, embarrassing them with her background. Jennifer declined the call and dialed Catherine Walsh instead. The quiet one was done being silent. Atlanta International Airport hummed with activity, but Jennifer stood motionless in the arrivals area, scanning faces for the two people who knew her before Marcos, before designer clothes and charity galas, before she became half of Atlanta's power couple. Her father's text had been brief: "Terminal S almost there, sweetheart." She spotted them before they saw her. Raymond Townsend's tall figure moving purposefully through the crowd, his weathered hands gripping both their carry-on bags. Beside him, Martha's shorter frame hurried to keep pace, her anxious eyes searching the terminal. "Mom," Jennifer choked out as they reached her. "Daddy." Martha's arms were around her in an instant, pulling her close. Jennifer breathed in her mother's familiar scent, lavender soap from the dollar store and the faint antiseptic smell that clung to her scrubs after hospital shifts, and finally let herself break down. "I'm pregnant," she whispered between sobs. She felt her mother's sharp intake of breath, saw her father's hand tighten on the luggage handle, but neither pulled away. Instead, Raymond moved closer, enveloping both his wife and daughter in his arms, creating a shelter from prying eyes and whispered conversations. Later, in Maddie's guest room, Martha busied herself with tea making. The familiar ritual of heating water, selecting cups, measuring leaves provided normalcy in their upended world. "Jennifer," Martha began, her voice steady now. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you long ago." She twisted her simple gold band, a nervous habit Jennifer had noticed but never questioned. "Before I met your father, I was married to someone else. His name was William." Martha took a shaky breath. "He was like Marcos. Charming in public, cruel in private. The kind of man who could make you doubt your own mind." Jennifer sat straighter, her tea forgotten. In 30 years, she'd never heard this story. "It started small," Martha continued. "Comments about my appearance, my cooking. Then came the isolation. He didn't like my friends. My family was too interfering. Before I knew it, I was alone. When he finally hit me, I'd already forgotten who I used to be. Mom, Jennifer whispered, reaching for her mother's hand. I left him on a Tuesday morning. Packed a single suitcase while he was at work and disappeared. I was terrified he'd find me. Spent 6 months living with my sister in Cincinnati, jumping at every shadow. That's where I met your father, she continued, glancing at Raymond with a softness that 3 decades hadn't diminished. He hired me as a receptionist at his contracting company. I was using my maiden name, kept to myself. Raymond's thumb moved in small circles on Martha's shoulder. She remembered everyone's coffee orders, brought homemade cookies on Fridays. Quiet, but so observant. Your father, Martha smiled up at him, was the first man who made me feel safe again. Who showed me that love shouldn't hurt. She turned back to Jennifer. I never told you because I wanted to protect you. I thought if you never knew, you'd never accept that kind of treatment. Martha's eyes filled with tears. And then I watched you on the news this morning and saw myself 30 years ago. This isn't your fault, Jennifer said firmly. None of it is. Martha moved to kneel beside Jennifer's chair, taking both her hands. Listen to me, sweetheart. You are stronger than you know. And that baby, she placed one hand gently on Jennifer's stomach. That baby is going to have a mother who showed them that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Raymond cleared his throat. We'll need to go to the house tomorrow. Get your things before he returns from wherever he's hiding. Jennifer nodded, squeezing her mother's hands. I've been thinking about that, about what to take, what to leave behind. She managed a small smile. The quiet one notices everything, remember. I know where all the important papers are. The backup drives. The financial records. That's my girl, Raymond said softly, pride evident in his voice. As evening fell, they sat together in Maddie's borrowed living room. 3 generations bound by love and survival. Outside, Atlanta continued its relentless pace, news vans gathering at the Davidson estate's gates. But in here, time moved like Martha's cooling tea, slow, gentle, healing. Dawn broke over Atlanta, painting the skyline in watercolor washes of pink and gold. Jennifer's fingers trembled slightly as she punched in the security code at the Buckhead Estate's gate. The code her birthday still worked. Small mercies. Raymond's rental car crept up the circular driveway, gravel crunching beneath its tires. The Georgian-style mansion loomed before them, 14,000 square feet of architectural perfection that had never felt like home. He's not here, Jennifer said, noting the absence of Marcos's Range Rover. His mother called Maddie last night. Said he's taking time to process at their Lake Lanier house. The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. They moved with military precision. Jennifer had spent the previous night making lists, her natural organizing skills turning to this painful task. The combination is my birthday, Jennifer said as she knelt before the safe in Marcos's study. He always said he'd never forget it that way. The heavy door swung open, revealing neat rows of jewelry boxes and documents. Martha held open a canvas bag while Jennifer methodically emptied the safe. Her engagement ring, a 5-carat diamond that had once made her dizzy with its implications, went in last. She paused, staring at it. Did you keep yours? She asked her mother. From before Dad? No, Martha answered softly. Sold it to pay for my lawyer. First smart financial decision I ever made. In Marcos's home office, Jennifer moved with practiced precision. She knew where everything was. Years of playing the perfect hostess had taught her the contents of every drawer, every filing cabinet. External hard drives, USB sticks, and folders of documents she'd carefully copied over the past year went into her laptop bag. "Smart girl," Raymond murmured, watching from the doorway. "I noticed things," Jennifer said, fingers flying over the keyboard of Marcos's computer. "Every time he'd rush to close his laptop when I entered the room. The way he'd take phone calls in the garden. The private email accounts. The master bedroom was the hardest. The bed was still made from 2 mornings ago, the last time she'd slept here, unknowing. Her clothes hung in neat rows in the walk-in closet, color-coded and organized by season. A lifestyle crafted with meticulous care, now revealed as a beautiful prison. Only take what you absolutely need," Martha advised, holding open a suitcase. "Clothes for different weather, important personal items. The rest," she gestured vaguely, "the rest is just things." Jennifer nodded, selecting pieces methodically. Comfortable clothes for her changing body, a few photos from her side of the dresser, the hand-knitted baby blanket her grandmother had made before passing away. She'd been saving it for a special announcement that would never come now. In the kitchen, she hesitated before the refrigerator covered in photos held by magnets. One caught her eye, taken at last year's Christmas party, before she was pregnant. She and Marcos looked perfect together, his arm around her waist, both smiling. But now she saw what the camera had captured, the slight tension in her shoulders, the way she leaned almost imperceptibly away from his grip. The shadow behind her smile. Raymond appeared beside her, gently removing the photo and placing it in a folder. "Evidence," he said simply. "Catherine Walsh might need it." As Jennifer turned to leave, her eyes fell on a small framed photo she'd placed on the entry table herself at 18, accepting her full scholarship to Georgia State, her mother beaming beside her. The photo Marcos had banished from the main rooms as not fitting with the decor. She tucked it into her bag. They worked steadily for 2 hours, moving like ghosts through the house that had been Jennifer's home for 5 years. Room by room, they gathered the pieces of her life she wanted to keep, leaving behind the careful facade she'd built as Marcos Davidson's wife. As they packed the last bag into the car, Jennifer's phone buzzed. A text from Lauren of all people: "We need to talk about the offshore accounts." Jennifer stared at the message, heart pounding. The quiet one notices everything, she reminded herself, including the suspicious transfers she'd documented over the past year. "Ready?" Raymond asked from the driver's seat. Jennifer took one last look at the house. Through the windows, she could see the kitchen where she'd hosted dinner parties, the living room where she'd sat quietly through Marcos's rages, the stairs she'd climbed countless nights feeling small and alone. "Yes," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "I'm ready." As they pulled away, she didn't look back. Instead, she opened her phone and forwarded Lauren's message to Catherine Walsh. The quiet one was done being silent. Catherine Walsh's office offered a stark contrast to the opulent Davidson Enterprises headquarters. The walls were a practical gray adorned with diplomas rather than expensive art. The attorney herself matched her surroundings, practical, focused, and refreshingly direct. "Lauren Pierce's text message is a game changer," Catherine said, reviewing the documents spread across her desk. Jennifer sat between her parents, back straight, hands folded protectively over her baby bump. "She's scared, and she should be. The financial records you've gathered suggest a pattern of systematic fraud." Raymond leaned forward slightly. What exactly are we looking at? Catherine selected a particular file. Based on Jennifer's documentation, Marcos has been moving substantial sums through a series of shell companies. Lauren's signature appears on several of these transactions as a witness or secondary authorizer. She's implicated herself deeply. I noticed the transfers starting last spring, Jennifer said quietly. Small amounts at first, then larger. Always on Friday afternoons when he thought I was at yoga. She paused, remembering those quiet hours spent in his home office instead of the studio, meticulously photographing documents with trembling hands. You were brave, Martha said, reaching for her daughter's hand. Smart, Catherine corrected, her tone approving. Most clients come to me with suspicions but no proof. You've given me a foundation to build on. She tapped her keyboard. The video of the assault has actually worked in our favor. Public sympathy is overwhelmingly on your side, and Marcos's actions have made several board members nervous. They're worried about liability. Jennifer bit her inner cheek, a gesture Catherine had already learned meant she was processing difficult information. His mother called again this morning. Said I'm destroying their family name, that I should think about my child's future. Classic manipulation, Catherine said firmly. Your child's future is exactly what you're protecting by doing this. She pulled out another document. Now, about the prenuptial agreement. He said it was standard, Jennifer murmured. I didn't even show it to a lawyer. I was so. She trailed off, embarrassed. In love, Martha finished softly. Catherine nodded sympathetically but pressed on. The good news is there are several clauses we can challenge, especially given the documented abuse and financial misconduct. More importantly, the agreement doesn't account for children. Your baby changes everything. A knock interrupted them. Catherine's assistant entered with fresh papers. Lauren Pierce's attorney just called. She wants to make a deal. The room fell silent. Jennifer closed her eyes, remembering Lauren's face that night at the gala. The way she'd stood there watching Marcos's violence without intervention. What kind of deal? Raymond asked, his voice carrying that protective edge. She's offering to testify about the financial irregularities in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Catherine turned to Jennifer. This is your decision. Lauren's testimony could be crucial, but I understand if working with her feels impossible. Jennifer opened her eyes, sitting straighter. The quiet one notices everything, she said, more to herself than the others, including the way Lauren flinched whenever Marcos raised his voice in the office. The way she'd check her phone compulsively after meetings with him. She looked at Catherine. She's another victim, isn't she? Just, differently. Possibly, Catherine agreed carefully. But that doesn't obligate you to help her. Jennifer thought of her mother's story, of the strength it took to start over. Tell her attorney we'll consider it. But we need full disclosure. Every document, every transaction, every conversation. She doesn't get to hide anything else. Catherine made a note, approval clear in her expression. I'll set up a meeting for next week. She pulled out a business card. This is the number for an excellent realtor who specializes in helping clients in situations like yours. The apartment you're considering in Midtown sounds perfect for a fresh start. As they gathered their things to leave, Catherine held Jennifer back for a moment. One more thing. The Davidson family's PR team released a statement this morning. They're pushing a narrative about mental health issues, suggesting pregnancy hormones made you unstable. Jennifer felt her mother stiffen beside her, saw her father's hands clench into fists. "Let them," Jennifer said, surprising herself with her calm. "The quiet one has all the receipts." Walking out of the office building into the bright Atlanta afternoon, Jennifer felt something shifting inside her. Not just the baby moving, but something in her spirit. The quiet one was finding her voice, and she had volumes to say. The SEC's announcement hit like a thunderclap across Atlanta's business community. Jennifer watched from her desk at Anderson Construction as the headlines rolled in: Davidson Enterprises under federal investigation for massive financial fraud, family foundation implicated in money laundering scheme, Margaret Davidson steps down as board chair. At 7 months pregnant now, Jennifer felt her baby respond to her racing heart as she read the detailed reports. The evidence she'd meticulously gathered over months had helped uncover years of systematic fraud, with Margaret Davidson at the center of it all. Her phone buzzed with a message from Catherine: "Turn on Channel 4 now." Carol Anderson, the matriarch of the family-owned construction company that had hired Jennifer as an administrative assistant, appeared with a small TV from the break room, setting it up as other employees gathered around. Margaret Davidson stood on the steps of the federal courthouse, her perfect composure finally cracking. "These allegations are baseless," she declared, but her voice trembled. "Mrs. Davidson, can you comment on the evidence provided by your daughter-in-law? The documented transfers to offshore accounts," a reporter interrupted. "Jennifer Townsend is a disturbed young woman seeking revenge for a marital dispute. She actually..." Another reporter cut in. "The SEC reports that Mrs. Townsend's evidence has been independently verified. Your own daughter-in-law helped expose a decade of financial crimes." Jennifer watched as Margaret's facade finally shattered. The woman who had terrorized her for years, who had orchestrated countless social humiliations and whispered threats, once telling Jennifer that people like you would never truly belong in their world, now looked small and afraid. "They're taking her in for questioning," Catherine texted. "Marcos too. It's happening." Carol squeezed Jennifer's shoulder. "You okay, dear?" "Yes," Jennifer answered, surprising herself with how true it felt. "I really am." The afternoon brought another unexpected visitor. Robert Chen from the SEC arrived with news too sensitive for phone calls. "They're offering a deal," he explained in Carol's private office. "Marcos is willing to testify against his mother, provide details about the entire operation." Jennifer sat very still, one hand resting on her belly. "In exchange for what?" "A reduced sentence, no jail time, but significant fines and restrictions on future business activities. He's also willing to sign an uncontested divorce agreement giving you full custody and a fair settlement." "Why now?" Jennifer asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because the quiet one's evidence was too strong to fight," Chen smiled. "And because Margaret Davidson kept detailed records of her own insurance against anyone crossing her, including her son." That evening, Jennifer sat in her parents' apartment watching the sunset paint Atlanta's skyline in shades of gold and purple. The news played quietly in the background, showing footage of Marcos being escorted into the federal building. "I never wanted to destroy them," she said softly. Raymond looked up from his crossword puzzle. "No, you wanted the truth. They destroyed themselves trying to hide it." Martha emerged from the kitchen with fresh tea. "How's the little one doing with all this excitement?" Jennifer smiled, feeling another kick. "Active. Like mother, like child. A fighter." "Just quieter about it," Martha nodded approvingly. A final text came from an unknown number: "I'm sorry for everything. M." Jennifer stared at the message from her soon-to-be ex-husband, remembering the charming man who'd swept her off her feet, the monster he'd become, and now this fallen figure seeking redemption through plea deals. "The quiet one sees everything," she whispered to her unborn child, "including when it's time to close a chapter and move forward." Outside, a summer storm was rolling in across the city. Jennifer watched the lightning illuminate the clouds, thinking how different her life had become in just a few months. The careful facade of the Davidson empire had crumbled, brought down not by grand exposés or dramatic confrontations, but by the quiet, patient work of a woman they had underestimated. Thunder rumbled, and in her belly, the baby kicked again. Jennifer smiled, touching the spot where she'd felt the movement. The quiet one's child was strong, active, alive with possibility just like its mother. 2 months after the Davidson empire crumbled, Jennifer sat in a rocking chair by the window of her midtown apartment's nursery, watching the sun rise over Atlanta. At 9 months pregnant, she felt the full weight of both her impending motherhood and the journey that had brought her here. The morning's Atlanta Journal-Constitution lay on the side table, its headline marking the end of an era: "Margaret Davidson pleads guilty to financial fraud, faces 15 years." Beside it, divorce papers bore fresh signatures, granting Jennifer full custody of her unborn child in a settlement that ensured their financial security, not Davidson wealth, but enough that she would never again have to choose between electricity and food as her mother once had. The nursery walls, still that gentle yellow her mother had chosen, glowed in the early morning light. A handmade quilt, Carol Anderson's gift, draped over the crib rail. On the dresser, her grandmother's knitted blanket waited for its new owner. "Can't sleep?" Martha appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day ahead. She'd insisted on staying through the birth. "Your granddaughter is practicing her kickboxing," Jennifer smiled, rubbing her belly. "The quiet one's daughter isn't so quiet." Martha brought over a cup of chamomile tea, settling into the second rocking chair, a thoughtful addition from Raymond, who believed every nursery needed a spot for grandma. "I got an interesting call yesterday," Jennifer said. "The women's shelter downtown wants me to join their board. They think my story might help others find their voice, especially those who've escaped poverty only to find themselves trapped in golden cages. Will you do it?" Jennifer nodded slowly. "Not for publicity. But if the quiet one's experience can help another woman find her strength." She trailed off as the baby kicked particularly hard. The sound of Raymond's quiet whistling drifted up from the kitchen. The familiar tune mixed with early morning traffic sounds from the street below, the soundtrack of her new life. A knock announced Lauren's arrival for their weekly breakfast. Another unexpected development. The former adversaries had found common ground in their shared healing, their conversations moving from legal testimony to genuine friendship. Both women had been used by the Davidsons in different ways: Jennifer for her public image as the perfect wife, Lauren for her financial expertise and vulnerability. "I brought those pregnancy-safe pastries you love," Lauren called out. "And news about the foundation case." The Davidson Family Foundation's assets had been frozen, its books under scrutiny. But Jennifer had a plan for that too, working with Catherine to ensure the legitimate charitable causes wouldn't suffer for the Davidsons' crimes, particularly the scholarship program that had once given her a chance to escape poverty. "The quiet one thinks of everything," Raymond said, appearing with a tray of breakfast essentials. As they gathered in Jennifer's small but sunny dining room, she felt the baby shift again. The doctor said it could be any day now. Her hospital bag was packed, the nursery ready, her support system in place. I've been thinking about names, Jennifer said. I want something that means strength but not the obvious choices. The quiet kind of strength. Martha nodded in understanding. Dawn, Jennifer said softly. It means the beginning of light, when darkness fades and truth emerges. Lauren raised her teacup. To Dawn, then, and to her mother who taught us all about the power of quiet strength. The sun had fully risen now, painting Atlanta's skyline in shades of promise. Jennifer felt Dawn move within her strong and sure, ready for her own emergence into the world. Sometimes, Jennifer said, watching the city wake up beyond her windows, the quietest voice carries the strongest truth. Martha squeezed her hand. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one writing the whole story. Raymond's steady presence, Lauren's reformed friendship, Maddie's unwavering support, Carol's maternal warmth, all the threads of her new life woven together into something beautiful and real. Not a facade, not a performance, but a true foundation built on quiet strength. Dawn kicked again, and Jennifer smiled. The quiet one's journey had transformed into something larger than herself. Not an ending, but a beginning. As silent and powerful as the sunrise painting the sky outside her window. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Jennifer's expanded Midtown apartment, catching the silver frame of a photograph on her desk. Dawn Elaine Townsend, age 1, laughing in her grandfather Raymond's arms while Martha watched adoringly. The baby's honey-colored eyes, so like her mother's, sparkled with joy. Her dark curls caught in the summer breeze. Jennifer adjusted her laptop screen, preparing for the Women's Shelter Board meeting. Their new program, Quiet Strength, had already helped dozens of women find their voices and rebuild their lives. Many of them, like Jennifer, had escaped poverty only to find themselves trapped in gilded cages with wealthy, abusive partners. On her desk next to Dawn's photo sat a small plaque, Jennifer Townsend, Director of Operations, Anderson Construction, alongside a handwritten note from Carol Anderson that read simply, "The quiet ones lead best." The program's most recent success story sat in Jennifer's inbox. Elena, a housekeeping worker who'd married a tech executive, endured years of abuse, then escaped with her children and evidence of his tax fraud. With Jennifer's guidance, Elena was now in community college, her children safe, her future her own again. The Davidson scandal had faded from headlines. Margaret served her sentence in federal prison, while Marcos had relocated to the West Coast after fulfilling his plea agreement. The Davidson Family Foundation's legitimate assets had been restructured into a new charitable trust, now overseen by an independent board that included Lauren Pierce, whose own journey of redemption had inspired others in corporate America to speak up against financial misconduct. Dawn's laughter echoed from the living room where Maddie was babysitting during the virtual board meeting. The sound mixed with the gentle bustle of Atlanta traffic below, a symphony of normal life, a peace hard-won and happiness well-earned. Jennifer touched her grandmother's knitted blanket, now worn soft with use and love, draped over her office chair. On her computer screen, a message popped up from the Women's Shelter director, "Ready when you are." The quarterly report Jennifer had prepared showed remarkable progress: 37 women housed, 22 in job training programs, 15 reunited with supportive family members, and all 43 children in their care receiving counseling and educational support. But what the spreadsheets couldn't show was the transformation Jennifer witnessed in their weekly support group, the moment when a woman who'd been told she was nothing discovered she was everything. The moment when someone who'd been silenced found her voice. The moment when a victim became a survivor. Last week, during group, a new member, a former beauty queen who'd married a prominent surgeon, had asked Jennifer how she'd found the courage to leave. "I didn't have courage," Jennifer had answered honestly. "I had evidence. And then I found my voice." The quiet one had risen from trailer park poverty to trophy wife to something far more powerful, a woman who helped others rise. Not through grand gestures or inspirational speeches, but through practical support, careful documentation, and the steady belief that everyone deserved safety and dignity. Dawn burst into the office, toddling on unsteady feet, reaching for her mother with complete trust and joy. Jennifer lifted her daughter, breathing in her sweet baby scent, and smiled. "Sorry," Maddie whispered from the doorway. "She heard your voice and couldn't be stopped." "It's okay," Jennifer said, settling Dawn on her lap as she connected to the virtual meeting. "The board should meet our inspiration." On screen, the faces of the shelter's leadership appeared, women and men committed to ending domestic violence and financial abuse. Among them, Catherine Walsh, who had joined the board after seeing firsthand how Jennifer's evidence had not only freed her but had created a roadmap for others. "Jennifer, we're ready for your quarterly update," the director said, smiling at the sight of Dawn. As Jennifer began her presentation, Dawn played contentedly with her mother's necklace, a simple pendant inscribed with the words "The Quiet One Rises." Some stories end with thunder, but the best ones, she had learned, end with the quiet promise of a new dawn. The journey of Jennifer Townsend teaches us that power doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it gathers quietly, in meticulously documented evidence, in patient observation, in the courage to walk away when staying would cost your soul. Her story reminds us that our pasts don't define us but inform us. Jennifer's experiences in poverty gave her the resilience and attention to detail that ultimately saved her. Her mother's hidden history provided the template for her own liberation. What others saw as disadvantages became her greatest strengths. But perhaps the most profound lesson is that freedom rarely comes in a single, dramatic moment. It's built day by day, choice by choice, documentation by documentation. Jennifer didn't transform overnight from victim to victor. She built her escape route methodically, laying each brick with careful precision until the path was complete. And finally, her journey teaches us about the ripple effects of our healing. When Jennifer found her voice, she created space for others to find theirs. When she rebuilt her life, she created a blueprint for others to follow. Her personal triumph became a collective liberation. The quiet ones often see what others miss. They notice patterns, document discrepancies, observe what lies beneath polished surfaces. And when they finally speak, worlds change. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply paying attention. There's a Jennifer Townsend in every community, the quiet observer documenting the truth, waiting for the right moment to speak. Maybe that person is you. If Jennifer's story resonated with you, ask yourself, what truths am I quietly observing? What evidence should I be collecting? What voice am I waiting to find? Our society often celebrates the loud, the flashy, the immediately visible forms of power. But Jennifer's journey reminds us that transformation often begins in silence, in careful observation, in meticulous documentation of the truth. Share your thoughts in the comments. When have you been the quiet one who saw what others missed? How did you find your voice when it mattered most? If you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone trapped in their own golden cage, someone wrestling with when to speak and when to document, someone trying to find the courage to walk away, share this video with them. Your share could be their first step toward dawn. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our community of quiet revolutionaries. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are told by those who were once silenced. Remember, the quiet one sees everything, including the path to freedom.